Awal has messaged me to say that he is now on the way to the hotel. So hopefully he'll be able to join midway as our panel session. And with that, shall we start our panel session?
Yeah, it's up to you.
Yep. All right. Okay. I've got a list of questions which I've shared with the presenters, panelists today. And I hope that the questions are challenging enough. And I hope also that it will spur the audience to then capture the essence and ask some more questions after this panel session during the Q&A so that we can have more inputs on the our quest for knowledge and our quest of sharing our experience so that it can be a basis for future what do you call that knowledge, the basis for our successors to then continue the halal integrity, upholding the halal integrity. All right, Sister Nadia, you mentioned the G2G just now,
Yes,
and I would say that it's it still needs more input from you. So could you elaborate on the specific harmonization challenges faced by HCBs, considering international trade and the varying standards, and how the Australian government has stepped in to assist, and what's the outcome?
absolutely. So Australia has like a website specifically for all stakeholders in Australia. It's called the Manual of Importing Countries. And anything G to G, if there's any changes, it has to be notified to the Australian government. What often happens is standards do get changed. And what the Australian government does do is I know there has been a change to a standard worldwide and just recently, and our government basically put in place about 3 to 4 couple of hour sessions of video conferences with all stakeholders. And it was mainly because we would get a lot of influx of our clients contacting us for requirements specifically for this country's new standards or amended standards. And it was outside of the halal scope, and the Australian government completely stepped in, brought us all together, and we all collaborated with all the questions and even brought that government in. So it was quite amazing. It allowed us to also give the information that was also required to our clients that have nothing to do with us, specifically around trade, what documents required, not just the halal certificate, but other trade documents that needed to be done. So it's really quite an eye-opening task. So the Australian government will do anything to protect that Australian halal trade in Australia.
Could you elaborate further about the halal attaché that Malaysia has? I mean, is it the only one?
Absolutely.
Is it the only one that has the halal attaché,
I do
or any other
believe
country
so.
has a halal attaché?
I do
Yeah.
believe so. We are really blessed. So we have our little Jackim here in Australia, in Canberra. Um, at the moment, it's Ustad name, and he basically, as we know, DVS and Jackim come out to audit our meat establishments, and basically once a year we're all audited by Jackim or that halal attaché at all times, and we've got someone to always talk to, ask questions, say we've got a problem with this client, and they're just there all the time. So it's really, really good. So we're
Mm.
really
Yeah. Did
we're
you
such a
know
minority Muslim country.
did you know that the current Director General of JAKIM, Dr. Siraj, was the first halal attaché?
He was. He
Yeah.
actually, and then there was Ustad Astri, is that right?
Yeah, it's Asri, and then before
And
Naim was Ustad.
Izam,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
Izam Paddle, and now Ustad name.
Naim. Yeah. So was this attaché at the request of the Australian government?
I think so. I
Yeah.
believe so. When
Yeah.
in our talks, yes. And I believe it probably would have come out on that export in that 2005 where the halal program. It's called AHGPH. I think it is something like that. Oh no, I've mixed that up with BPJPH. But it's called the Australian Halal Government Program. So we've got it specifically. It's kind of a triangle where the Australian government will approve the meat establishments manuals and approved arrangements. and the certifier, well, the Australian government will also approve the certifier, and the certifier will approve the meat establishment. So it's kind of like a triangle of compliance.
Mm.
And of course, the Australian government probably gets ordered by Jackim.
Yeah, that's great. I believe that more documentation can be done on this, and considering this International Health Conference is I would call it supported by SMIC. Um, your presentation can also be something that can be presented or highlighted to His Excellency Mr. Ihsan, so that something can be done within this MIC and OIC that can emulate Australia's Malaysia G2G cooperation in strengthening the halal integrity. Yeah,
Yes,
I hope
yes.
we can be that. Yeah, good, good. So, Sister Gemma, in your interest, your presentation about animal sciences and farming was quite great, and your concern about the skilled labor is also my concern now after you highlighted it. It really didn't cross my mind about it because I'm not in Malaysia and things are being handled by Jakim. Uh, and the thing is that I would say again, Alhamdulillah, I mean, this is a SMIC supported event that we can also bring this up to the attention of His Excellency so that more skilled laborers in this area, or what we can do to make the next generation be interested in upholding the halal integrity despite this part of the halal chain being so onerous, taxing, and the with all the blood and all that. So what do you think that we can do to address harmonization challenges and preparing for the next generation in via this harmonization?
I think initially we would have to actually do some research into the next generation's view of working in these industries. And I mean, here in the UK, farming and slaughter and things like that, they're not part of school curriculum. They will focus basically on the English, maths and science and history. Obviously, there is the age concern. You don't want to be talking about slaughter to younger children, but then it becomes more of a choice once you pass the age of 16. So first of all, I think doing some research and maybe comparing between Muslim countries and non-Muslim to see what interest there is for those generations to work in the industry and where they would want to work. And then maybe doing some sort of like careers expos. I know we have lots of expeditions around the world and we have lots of conferences about halal in the industry and B2B and, export and trade and money making, but maybe we could include careers sections and actually encourage a younger set of visitors and educational institutions to actually attend maybe like an educational conference as well within those expeditions, and then speak with the certifiers and all the halal standards and people like Jekim and CIMIC, and maybe build some sort of courses and educational programs. So then those that do have interest can actually attend specialized training courses or maybe even gain diplomas in halal industry. Of course, if they want to become academics, they can then continue to places like UNISA Brunei. But I think if we can harmonize the education as well and include all these future trends, then ideally, these expertise over time will be build up and it will minimize the risk of contamination of products or procedural errors because we will have people to take over our jobs when we are older. with the same integrity, but also with a modern view of what's going on in the industries. Trying to get the younger generations into those labor-intensive jobs is hard. Lots of them just want to be, influencers and make lots of money just by making their reels on TikTok. But unfortunately, that's not a reality. And I think it's about raising education that they should be concerned. They should be very concerned that if they don't pick up where their parents or their grandparents left off, then they won't have a halal industry. It will just be handed over to authorities, and then they can't really have much of a say about their standards and production because they didn't want to be involved. So I think that it's about awareness, definitely, to then create that harmonization from our side to then pass down to that generation.
Correct. But what do you think about the involvement of scholars, the involvement of mosques in generating this interest on the halal industry?
I think that would be very important. There are certain sheikhs or scholars that are very active on YouTube, especially the younger generations. They like to watch people like Omar Suleiman. They like to watch Norman Ali Khan, Hamza Yusuf. There's some famous people, more famous scholars here in the UK who, especially during Ramadan as well, they will do series about Ramadan. And I feel like once they draw in that attention, they get the subscribers on their channels, the younger generations will continue watching their things. They have this respect for them. So they could help us potentially create some awareness about the halal industry and actually doing it as a job, and that it's not something that just happens in the background. It's something that we need to take control of as well. I think they could help us a lot. And madrasas as well. So the mosques themselves, when young people go to mosque, it's generally maybe like a Friday, or if they're going for their Islamic education. So again, having somebody come in and do a talk and just plant that seed to begin with would be helpful.
Yeah. I would say in Malaysia also, we are starting to integrate the halal element into the whole Islamic knowledge. I'm glad, Alhamdulillah, that both the current DG and the one previously had been very involved in halal, and I believe that their experience in halal is driving how the education is being disseminated to the nation here. I think it's all a learning process, and I would say, and I would emphasize, like I did yesterday, that this sharing is a sharing of shared knowledge, shared experience. You may not experience it. I'm sharing so that then you can emulate it or adapt it. Wisdom at your respective areas, starting especially with non-Muslim majority countries or nations. It starts with your community first. So Alhamdulillah, I'm really happy with the theme of this year's International Halal Conference and the way that we are moving the discussion, that it can continue on with this Islamic Economy Academy that is the organizer of this event. We can work together for that. So next question, Sister Nadia again. How can HCBs leverage on the consumer insights to build trust and ensure compliance, especially considering evolving consumer expectations and the need to balance transparency with commercial pressures to retain the trust?
For in Australia, the consumer expectations are definitely wanting more transparency. And it's around some of those are the Australian consumers believe that establishments or our clients should be disclosing the ingredient suppliers, which would be an IP issue, a breach of confidentiality. And there's that lack of understanding, even when it's brought to that attention. So I do believe a lot of education needs to be brought up around that. Also, another problem that we do have with consumers wanting that transparency is they do tend to rely on websites specifically that may be overseas. So they've immigrated here to Australia, but they're checking websites that are specific for other countries. And the way Australian products are made might be slightly different, such as tartaric acid, where the way it's made in Europe, the way it's made here in Australia, and the way it's made in South Africa are totally different.
Mm.
So some of these things become, their want for transparency, but also there's fitna, there's this like really fine line. Sometimes if you give too much information, it leads some people into disarray, and others that just love it. So I do believe certifiers worldwide could put a lot more on websites and encourage their own clients to state that they're halal because that's where Muslims are looking and that's what they want. And we're in an age of technology where they have the internet at the touch of their fingers. So
I, I,
yeah.
I yeah, I would say transparency is very key. I believe some of the audience here are halal executives. The certified halal executive of Malaysia, Jakim, has certified them as halal executive. And knowing the process of the certification in Malaysia, one of the things that you need to make sure is that if you are using ingredients, it must be halal certified and that the halal certification is valid and from recognized bodies. I remember when I was in the industry, it's a headache that time, 20 years ago, to get all these documents.
Mm.
I'm not quite sure about now, but I believe it is still uh, onerous. But then hopefully uh, that within the HCBs and JAKIM and all the other certification bodies, there could be some sort of a database because even like when you are doing you're doing the certification of a finished product,
Mm.
you are depending on the ingredients and then you have to get your client to make sure that they are halal certified. How are they get because especially if you're small, how are you getting the halal certification, valid halal certification from the supplier? And they say you're so small, you only buy a small chunk. Why should I bother with providing you with these documents, right? So how do you feel that HCBs can help to solve these issues?
Oh, I mean, for us, how we work, I mean, we definitely try to gain that. We definitely want a halal certificate for each ingredient. But you're right, you do come across some like farms that are in the middle of nowhere that are making eucalyptus oils. And you have to probably take what the farm is basically, it's just eucalyptus oil. And if they're not wanting to be, we could possibly go through statutory declarations to make sure that, what's your extraction of these oils? Is it with ethanol? Is it with steam distillation, propylene glycol, etc.? So, I mean, there are ways, but then there's extra controls put on place where, you would do some extra testing to also substantiate whatever you are going to do in that regard. But for such small, I would only do it on specific situations. I would never do it like, a meat flavor says, sorry, I can't get this halal certified. I'd be like, no way, I don't care. So every ingredient needs to be halal certified. So yeah, it is hard. And I do know this was very question is very important, especially I know that it also happens in Malaysia and Indonesia as well, where they're too small to have it. Or I'm not too sure too much in Malaysia, but I do know that Elvina and myself have spoken about this subject in a year ago
Yeah,
or so. So yeah.
it is. I sit in the presentation what do you call it, WhatsApp group of this HALA executive, and that they're asking, do you have this certificate? Can we share the certificate of this particular product? Because um, you know, they just need it. They won't be able to get it from the supplier or even the importer that they are dealing with. But the requirement is that they must see the certificate. So these are the things that I would say that in Malaysia, I'm a producer, and I'm buying ingredients which carries your logo, right? For the ingredients that is being produced in Australia, your
Yeah.
logo is there. Your halal cert is there, and I'm depending on you that you have go back to ensure that the chain is not broken, the trust is not broken, right? So I mean, this is the thing that people need to be aware of, how the chain goes way back to the farm, and how we
Agree.
are dependent about with each other on the certifications line. And yeah, I see that our brother Mahmoud and sister Elvina are here listening to this, and I hope our the next upcoming um, slots in the following days that involve these speakers or panelists, this can be discussed further. All right,
I
Sister
just wanted to
Gemma.
add, I
Yeah,
just
okay.
wanted to add something really quickly to that. Another way that we do actually get around it is just by offering it extremely cheap or almost free, so that we can get that halal certified. But so that's another option. But sometimes it all depends on how large the certifier and whether they can have that time or ability to do such a thing. I just wanted to say that.
Okay, great. Um, Dr. Awal has just contacted me to ask me for the link. Let's see whether he's able to join after receiving the link. We are still. I just let me message to him that we are waiting for him just to listen a bit about what he doesn't have to present, but maybe he can wait. We are waiting for to listen to your views. Okay, right. So back to Sister Gemma. Um, how do you think the ethical consideration in halal livestock management impact consumer trust? Can you share some strategies or case studies that demonstrate successful integration of ethical consideration in halal livestock management?
Yeah, so the ethical livestock management, including obviously the humane treatment, reducing the stress, and the ethical slaughter. If the consumer has the perception that all of this is adhered to, they are more likely to buy these products. That said, previous research that I've done, consumers well, I'm trying to think of my specific for my statistics now. 88% of the consumers that I surveyed about this said that the animal's life was just as important as the slaughter. And there's been lots of ethical debate around happy life or happy death. They're alive a lot longer than they die. So there's that fine line there between having our ethical and high welfare at the halal slaughter, but obviously we need to include that in the supply chain before that. So consumers are very much driven by this now. It was consumers between the age of 18 and 35. So those consumers are predominantly those with maybe younger families, or they have their own disposable income. And like Sister Nadia was saying earlier, then they are the children or the grandchildren of the immigrants. So it may be that their older generations meat and farming is very much just a cultural practice. It's just a commodity that people just eat, whereas now we can afford to be a little bit more picky about what they buy. But consumers are concerned and very confused with labeling. And I often have to explain to them that if you want the rearing method, the slaughter method, what it's been fed, if it's halal or not, this is so much information to put on one label. I mean, how much time do they really spend standing there looking at a label? It needs to be carefully designed. But also, there is an element that consumers, due to economic conditions, especially since COVID, COVID made people very aware of animal disease and factory farming, and they got a taste of what happens if we have a disease outbreak. I think we can all safely say that this was not good times. So they have this moral and ethical consideration that they want these clean products, they want the animals raised well, they don't want this disease outbreak. But at the same time, they are very much driven by preference and price. If I said to a halal consumer that you can have a very high welfare chicken, but that organic chicken is going to cost you £20 versus getting 4 for £10, people unfortunately are still defaulting to the cheaper option. Okay, so consumers want best of both worlds. They want this consumer confidence that they have a halal product with high integrity, it's been ethically raised and it's had really good conditions. However, they don't seem to understand that the production and the manpower that goes into us giving those halal and tayyib 100% products it needs to be reflected in the price inevitably. But yeah, consumers are increasingly seeking transparency and adhering to those ethical standards. If certifiers are found to be deviating from what they are advertising, the trust and the reputational damage is horrendous. Because we now have access to social media and the internet, all it takes is for one person to post a reel that goes viral, slating that halal certification body and halal standards, and it blows up all over the internet. So this is where we need to be a bit careful with our labeling and the transparency. Like Sister was saying a while ago, you've got some that want all the details, but then they get even more confused. And then you've got others that want all the details and they really, really appreciate this. And people are very fickle with their information and what they understand. We have to remember that all of us here, we are experts. We have PhDs, degrees. We've been studying this a long, long time. Myself, I've been studying this 8-9 years now. A consumer, they just have word of mouth from their parents and then through the community. When looking at frameworks and strategies, obviously Malaysia, New Zealand, and even Australia is starting to catch up now as well, with having these high welfare standards on the farm, but having welfare assurance integrating with that halal label is something that we can definitely work on. And then, of course, we've got that with New Zealand and Australia, you've got your government departments. So yes, in the UK, we do have our government departments and we work with DEFRA and AHDB to have the halal standards, and we have our independent halal certifiers that help with this and international trade. But I think just a bit more tighter collaboration could be helpful to have that UK standard, much like New Zealand and Australia work with. And I think this would help on a larger scale to build consumer confidence as well. And having collaboration between scholars and scientists. At the end of the day, like I was saying, there is breaks within our chain. Somebody could be a professor of Islamic studies and Islamic jurisprudence, but how much do they really know about sitting on a farm or being in a slaughterhouse? They can tell you the rulings in Islam. Yes, alhamdulillah, they've studied a long, long time, but being there face to face, facing those day-to-day challenges that we come up against is very, very different. So strategies is mainly collaboration and adhering to research that comes out, and then changing our standards and just doing whatever we can to work with each other and educate each other as well.
Totally agree with you on that. Yes. Alhamdulillah, Dr. Awal has joined us. Dr. Awal? Dr. Awal?
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Rozi, and everybody. I hope you're all doing well.
Yes. Alhamdulillah, I'm so happy that you're able to make it. We're still within time, so no worries. I've actually um, uh, I've already covered two of the questions, two areas of the questions for the panel session with our two sisters. Yeah, I don't think it's enough time for you to make your presentation, but there are some things that Sister Gemma and also I myself, and there's one audience here that is interested in in what you're doing, Dr. Awal. And what Sister Gemma mentioned earlier relating to you is your travel to New Zealand. If you can share the experience, because Sister Nadia has shared the Australian experience. Sister Gemma has touched about the UK experience. Maybe you can help to touch a bit about New Zealand experience in Halal through your observation with your recent visit, and then tie it with the discussion along with the questions that I have sent to you earlier, if you could.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Gemma, good evening. Good evening, Nadia, and everyone here. So I've just come back I've just arrived in Brisbane from Wellington. Sister Nadia, I need to get in touch with you whilst I'm in Australia. Yeah, what I've observed, and I really want to hear from Sister Nadia later on. I've observed that that New Zealand is far ahead of the UK in terms of halal. That is the truth. Because if you look at New Zealand, they've got some government involvement in halal. They've also got an industry body called the Meat Industry Association, which is heavily involved in halal. So from that, I think they are doing all they can to assure Muslim community that whatever they are doing is compliance with the halal production. The other thing, I don't know what I hear in Australia, Sister Nadia, is they've got recovery demonstrations, because many Muslims do not believe that head-only standing is reversible. So they want to demonstrate to the Muslim community that yes, they do stand their animals, but the method of standing they are using is reversible. So Gemma, when I come back, we have a lot to talk about. I think there's a lot we can improve in the UK. Yeah. So thank you.
That's great to hear that there is a successful visit, a successful journey, and you being in Brisbane. Nadia, where are you?
I'm in Sydney, Australia.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. Which country? Which city?
Yeah, Sydney.
Sydney. Oh, okay.
How far is it from Brisbane?
2-hour flight or an hour and a half flight, I think. I can't remember.
All right. Yeah, I need to speak to your dad too. I need to speak to him.
I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Earlier I was talking about how we need to engage the youth and the next generations to study halal sciences and get involved in obviously farming and slaughter and those labor-intensive industries to keep our industry going. Your book that you wrote about where does my halal meat come from, is that allowed worldwide, or is that just UK delivery?
Is allowed worldwide, and I wrote it with a gentleman called Rizvan. Many of you may have known Rizvan. So what we're trying to encourage in the book is regenerative farming, animal welfare, and just telling children how halal meat is produced so that they can understand all the technicalities that are involved. So it's available worldwide, but I'll check again to see where it is available at the minute. Yeah.
Because it's also a question in the meeting chat about that book. Sister Gemma mentioned about it, because says something like, I think on a larger scale, having interesting stands and talks like expos for teenager, etc., in a way make halal industry cool. Yeah, I like the word.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because we have to start preparing our successor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So if I can go back to the questions that I've shared with you, Dr. Awal. So from your experience in the UK, is there any government and industry cooperation which you can quote or share with us that has helped standardizing the halal certification process?
Unfortunately, there is a lack of interest in halal from the government. The only interest we have seen is what is an organization called the Agriculture and Horticulture Development Board. They are doing their best to improve halal, but the government has stated time and time again that they are not interested in halal, which is a pity because Muslims in the UK consume the majority of the meat that we produce when it comes to sheep meat. And mutton, most of the mutton, almost 95% of mutton will end up in the Muslim community. So it is big, but there is lack of investment in the UK. Yeah,
I guess it's because exports is not so great as compared to Australia. The
correct,
dependence on
correct, correct. New
export.
Zealand and Australia, I think they build their systems around export,
Yeah,
but in the UK, we have a big domestic market, and also the EU market is just around the corner. So that's why they haven't paid a lot of attention to halal.
yeah. And I suppose that the Muslims in these countries they buy their ready-made products from the community itself rather than from the off the shelf, right? So,
Correct, correct. Most Muslims in the UK will buy from corner shops or
mm,
Muslim operated shops rather
yeah,
than from the main supermarket. But things are changing a little bit, but many people still buy from the corner shops.
yeah. So I
Yeah,
guess for the UK and perhaps even other countries, the fact that the need for halal only meant for their own people's consumption, but also tourists. And I believe
correct.
is in tourism. Uh,
Okay.
I'm not quite sure whether he or she. I hope that during the Q&A session in a while, you can come forward and ask some questions. Yeah. Um,
Mm.
so the next question to Dr. Awal is that how can HCB collaborate across borders to minimize the impact of varying international halal standards?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge we have with HCBs in Europe and also worldwide is lack of training. We need to standardize auditing protocol. We need to standardize training because if you take two auditors to an abattoir, for instance, to audit, one auditor may finish auditing within 2 hours, another can stay there for 4 hours. Also, if you look at how much is charged, the charging is different. We need to standardize this thing before we can collaborate with the industry. I'm just talking about Europe for now. Australia and New Zealand may be different. So we need to standardize our procedures, our auditing protocols, our standards before we start talking to industry.
You're right.
Yeah.
So I guess the learning process, I mean, the sharing of the experience is very important. Like I was telling Sister Nadia just now, she has traced back the halal certification in Australia way back to the 1600s. My tracing is only in 1964. What
Yeah.
available information that Jakim can provide, and she does her own study, and that's very
Mashallah.
commendable. So I guess
Mashallah.
every one of us should start looking, tracing histories and sharing them because it will help one another to make the halal integrity stronger, the
Yeah.
halal
Yeah.
traceability better, and the HCBs more confident in certifying and at the end of it benefit the Ummah. So
Yeah.
last round, going to Sister Gemma, how can we ensure future workforce development aligns with evolving ethical consideration in areas like animal welfare within the halal industry? What's one trend in the workforce training that can revisionalize halal integrity? You're mute. Sister Gemma, unmute.
Of course I am. There we are. So as I said before, workforce training could potentially integrate ethical animal welfare principles in certification and veterinary education, which we do well, especially at the point of slaughter and while the animals are being handled around this area. In veterinary education and animal sciences, there are ethics units where students will actually study this quite in depth and write essays about it. I think cross-disciplinary collaboration between science experts and religious scholars and industry leaders could ensure the training involves those ethical advancements as well. And like continuous professional development programs. So I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but here in the UK, once you're in a job, we are offered what's called CPD. So even when I'm lecturing, I will be given days off to go out into industry and pick up some more knowledge to then bring back into my lectures. I think this would be helpful within the halal industry everywhere, where maybe there could be some sort of initiative put forward where people are released from their day jobs to then go and work in a different area or sector of the halal industry, to have professional development, so we fully understand where we are. I think it's very easy for us to get stuck in our certain section of the supply chain, especially if you've got one of the more labor intensive parts of the supply chain. So I think that would be a good initiative as well. And that could help revolutionize the halal integrity along our global welfare and religious standards as well, because it could even be something like a scholar has a day release to actually go to a farm, or a day release to go to a packaging or labeling institute, or come and sit with Awal in one of his meetings. Sometimes they don't understand fully what each other do on a day-to-day basis. So I think that could help with halal integrity. And the adoption of that technology-driven training. So we may have AI with the sensors and checking the algorithms for halal quality, but maybe if we are restricted with travel or hands-on training, we have virtual reality, we have VR. I used it at work a few weeks ago, where I got the students to put the VR headsets on and they were transported to a factory farm and they got to walk around. It was very funny watching them all stand there wobbling around and they're not actually doing anything in particular. But it was really, really helpful, and it was insightful to see what different viewpoints they all got from that virtual reality. So that could help transform the halal workforce education. We could load up programs where you could go VR to Australia or VR to Malaysia, and we can actually see it face to face. We could also do more hands-on for that humane handling. Of course, we have restrictions in slaughterhouses of health and safety and biosecurity. Of course we do. But having immersive environments to allow us to have more real world application as well could revolutionize halal, maybe using this kind of technology.
Yeah, that's I like the VR part, to sort of like substitute for an actual presence, because like in Malaysia, students from the universities are now requested to do internship for about minimum 6 months, and some of these graduates that I got to know, they in from one university, that they are what do you call that? They're encouraged to mix their internship, 6 months in industry, and then 4 months or so in in Jakim, or even the state's certification agency. So they get exposed to both sides of the coin, and that's, I think, is a good experience for them. And this is something that worth sharing, and see how we can exchange. But the VR is also a good idea, very, very good idea indeed. Right. So I go to Sister Nadia first. What do you envision as a key trend in halal certification in Australia, and how can this be leveraged to enhance workforce development and adapt these emerging trends? You're on mute too, Nadia.
I've done it too.
Yes.
I was going to say to you, as I was saying before, like we've got a massive cosmetic boom here in Australia, and you know, you do have trends, and although like it's not as if it's new, women are wanting to wear hair, makeup, and they want it to be halal, and even if it's just for their weddings or at night time, and being in obviously there's two issues with this that we're going to get into is when we start to get newer markets here in Australia. I remember the pharmaceutical, when it first started, you try and get ingredients and then none of it was halal, even though you've got so many flavor houses certified here in Australia as halal. it's just where they're buying their products, they're just not halal. So as the area starts to build, it hopefully, like in a couple of years, there'll be more of their suppliers getting halal certified. But this is the start of it, where it just, even though cosmetics was definitely a boom way down in the 90s, it's come in a totally different way, in a huge, huge way here, and it's beyond like trying to get that certified at this present time. One of the issues that we do have, and I know Sister Gemma's brought this up, is being in a Muslim minority country and just taking cosmetics into consideration. We will require chemists and flavorists and whatever to deal with that. But what we have a problem here in Australia, and it's a trend and it's a situation that's a real challenge here, is we don't have as many skilled. I mean, we've got many Muslims that are skilled, not necessarily that we are staying in the halal certification industry. Sharia people predominantly want to be teachers. They don't want to be auditors. So, and scientists want to be QAs, or they want to be working in research, or they want to be in labs. So we have this real starvation of Muslims that are right. So it would be phenomenal if we had universities and schools offering this. I know us as a certification body, we try to teach the youth so that, they will be the next generation for us to learn halal, or else we're going to just pass away and it just be left with who, I don't know. So these are our trends and these are our challenges that we have around how we're going to leverage on that workforce at this present time.
Yeah.
To be continued, I'd say.
Yes, indeed. Dr. Awal, if I can give your time to Sister Gemma a bit, because her baby is crying. So, Sister Gemma, you can just wrap up. I'll just give you some time to just wrap up and give an overall, what's there in the future.
I think the immediate future is, like Dr. Awal was saying, is just to work domestically or maybe within that, like our areas. So obviously you've got CIMIC and then you've got the Malaysian standards. I think if we can work together to have those harmonized standards and try and work together and work with our issues that we have domestically, and then maybe alongside that, just do a little bit more, start raising more awareness, especially to the younger generations, of what the halal industry is, what we all do, maybe give them some case studies of different, we could even get actual people's case studies. So we could have people such as yourself, where we have a little bit of background about you, because they're not aware of what goes on at all. I think some social media drives would be a good idea as well. And then maybe in the future, once we're all a bit more on the same page, we can start integrating some of those training systems as well, and having that harmonized halal standards, I think. And then hopefully, yeah, we can do things at expos where we're trying to get the younger generations walking through the doors of these conferences and these expos. Maybe we could open up the floor and these speaking opportunities to students rather than just industry professionals, because they're the ones doing the new research. They're the new PhD students. They're going to be the new us. I don't want to make you all feel really old, but they will be the new us. So yeah, actually give them the limelight and let them drive what happens next, and maybe tell us what the youth wants, tell us what the industry is telling them. They're in different circles to us. So I think that would be a good thing for the future, the near future.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think all this while, as we see the trends of webinars and conferences, it's all the experience talking to the participants, to the audience, but and when asking for Q&A, people are afraid and you don't have any questions. I think we need to encourage for these people to then start talking about their viewpoints. And yeah, I hope that the next International Halal Conference will focus one session on that. Yeah, Brother Muhammad, I hope you're listening to that. Right. So thank you very much, Sister Gemma, for your contribution. I think it's very insightful, and all the best, and I hope we can continue our collaborations in terms of exchanging ideas and knowledge in the near future. Assalamualaikum to you.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you everybody for attending.
All right. Okay, back to you, Dr. Awal. I put you last because I would like you to wrap up also in terms of your in this short while that you joined us, from your experience in traveling, from your observation in the UK. How can you ensure that the future workforce development, based on your observation, that the can support the development of skilled professionals in the halal industry, both in the UK and also globally?
Yeah, I have Sister Nadia. What we need to do is use modernization to bring abattoirs close to consumers and also the younger generation. I was in Dubai a few weeks ago, and I went to Dubai municipality's abattoir. I was invited by a very good brother Nasser, and he opened the door for me. If you go in there, you see a glass where consumers can actually see their animals being processed. In the UK, it's very difficult to get to an abattoir. We need to move away from that. So either we have virtual reality to bring it closer to consumers, or we allow consumers access to abattoirs. In the UK, we had an issue just last month where an NGO put secret cameras in a halal abattoir, and the Muslim slaughtermen were actually abusing animals. They were abusing animals not even at the point of slaughter, but when they were restraining them, they were throwing them about. So I said that has got nothing to do with halal. That is more to do with human behavior. So you need to train people to understand proper handling of animals, so that slaughtermen can understand all the significance of these things. Then we need to bring it closer to the consumer, either via virtual reality or what we saw in Dubai, where they've got a glass, people can come in and actually pick their meat. And it was a very clean abattoir. So we can use that as an example to attract people to abattoirs. It's not a killing, well, we do kill animals there, but it's not a murderous environment. It's actually a very clean, and the process can be attractive to others.
Yeah, that's a great idea, and
Yeah.
alhamdulillah, I'm very happy that this particular what do you call it, conference, we managed to um, bring in good insights from the speakers, sharing of ideas. I mean, just day two, and I feel that I learned a lot more now. I mean, there's so many things I still have to learn. So there's a question. I mean, let's go to the audience. Can you ask the question yourself, please? I'm not quite sure. Is a brother or a sister? Fairuz?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm a sister from Cape Town, South Africa. I want to say shukran to all the participants and to yourself as a moderator for this wonderful topics that have been brought up here today. My question is just about, well, the last question I posed is, when you speak about the workers in these abattoirs, are they, I mean, they work with these animals all the time, having to restrain them and that type of thing. Are there any programs, wellness programs in place for these workers, so that they too are taken care of, and, anger management, all of those kind of things? Is there something like that in place in those places?
Brother, Dr. Awal?
That's a very good point, Sister Feroz. Unfortunately, in the UK, we don't have wellness courses or wellness interactions with slaughtermen, but we do need it, because I've just given you an example where people were abusing animals. If we had something like that, maybe it would be different. The only course slaughtermen will do before slaughter is what we call certificate of competence. So they take them through a practical knife sharpening and also slaughter process before they start processing. But I agree with you, maybe we need a wellness thing so that we can make them feel empathy for animals they are slaughtering.
Sister Nadia, your views on that?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Here in Australia, we have the RSPCA, which also comes to audit the abattoir. So they are predominantly on animal welfare. One of the requirements is there must be cameras in the slaughterhouse, the pens, I think in the stunning area. So, and they will look back on this. So they will gain a fine if they see any animal cruelty. Also, one of the requirements here in Australia is anyone touching an animal has to undergo animal welfare training. And they must have a certificate with regards to that. And it's part of their, being audited against as well. So we're pretty lucky in that regard.
I would say that Sister Farou's question just now is a bit unique because she's not talking about the welfare of the animal. She's talking about the welfare of the slaughterman because
Oh, that's right.
they look at blood every day. Most of the time, it can be anger management that needs to be addressed also, right?
That's true. And like Brother Awal said that the slaughtermen also go through, we've got a national slaughtering program that can be done through TAFE as well, and it will go through making sure that anger management or being in control of your emotions and not being angry and holding a knife is basically. So yeah, it definitely, and it's a great question. It really is a great question.
Yeah.
Rosie, if I can just say something, when we apply for jobs, we have to produce our CVs and resumes and those type of things. And, you obviously have to fit the picture. But that's only the beginning. But, are those programs for, like you said, anger management and those type of things, is it an ongoing thing? Is it something like, because wellness is being introduced in so many corporate companies, that don't even have that stresses of having to move around animals all the time and manage them and having to be in that blood situation as we know it. Some people don't have maybe any other skills or certification to be in another job, but this is the one that they would take up, as an alternative maybe, or maybe a mainstream business for themselves. But I think the wellness should be part of an ongoing process, not just as, initial stage of getting a job opportunity.
Very true.
Great. Okay. Anybody else that would like to
Oh.
I think the Awal, you accidentally pressed something, right?
Sorry.
I
Sorry,
think
let me stop.
you were
Yeah,
sharing something.
sorry.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else that would like to pose questions here? Feel free, Okay, there's a question on the chat here that I would like Dr. Awal and Sister Nadia to just give your views based on your experience here about she's concerned what Sister Gemma talked about the next generation, so so it is also like part of a risk for the future. Now, how can we solve it? Yes, we know that stunning, the machine using machine bolts and all that has been banned because they're not good. But is there any way that for the future, with the advancement of technology, that somehow or rather there could be a possibility that such machine replacement can be done to help ease up this or fill up the gap that could be coming without us having to without it being what do you call that affecting the religious obligation. Nadia first.
Yeah, I was going to say anything is possible, and I'd say with the technology that's happening at the present time. I mean, I remember when I started doing like using a computer in the 1990s or something, thinking, oh, I'll never take off. I'm not going to learn. And then look at us now.
Yes.
So I do think it's going to be the younger generation and those ones inside those engineering and scientific roles that are going to develop something, and it's going to revolutionize. It's just whether the certifiers and the abattoirs and the governments are going to take it on, because making a big change and having to take on, does it affect the religious aspect? Does it of what we know and what we're all aware of in the industry is going to be probably where the challenge lies. I think anything can be automated. I mean, it probably can get to a stage where AI is going to start doing our auditing. I don't know. I'm not saying that, but we are entering into that AI revolutionary era.
Yeah, I started to use AI in drafting my presentation, but yeah, you use to be careful because I do have the background, so I know some of the AI's recommendation are out of out of line. But we have to be careful that the AI also needs to be monitored. That people know when it's out of line. Like me, I know when it's out of line, and I know when they're giving. It's a good brainstorming platform for me, right? Dr. Awal, what's your take on that?
Uh,
You muted yourself.
yeah, from what can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, from what I've seen in New Zealand, I think they are well advanced in terms of researching into new systems to help the industry. And I've just arrived in Australia. I also have a look. On Thursday, I'm visiting an abattoir with a researcher. You may know her, Nadia. She's called Alison Small. She developed a system where you put an electrode on the head of a cow and increase the temperature of the head so that the brain temperature will increase to a stage where the animal will become insensible to pain. So I'm going to look at it on Thursday in Melbourne. So I think there's
I've
a
been there.
lot.
I know where you're going.
Oh, oh, you've been there, yeah?
That's
Okay,
amazing.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, all right. So yeah, I'll be going to see how it works. So I think a lot of people are working, but what we need to do as Muslims is we need to start funding research. Muslims are only interested in making money. When we make money, what do we use it for? We need to reinvest it into halal. And the best way to do that is to fund research so that new developments can be made.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think people are not that aware or appreciate the fact that this meat-based industry is still very important, that it affects the other industry, especially pharmaceuticals,
Yeah.
that requires a lot of materials that is coming from animal indirectly, right? But and we still haven't solved the problem about gelatin. You know, I've been in halal for 20 years and it's still not solved yet. It's still 5% halal certified gelatin since then until now. It's still the number has not increased. So there's still a long way to go. And one thing is that the sharing and also this having the knowledge, sharing of history and sharing of knowledge, focusing on this is very important for us to prepare our next generation. So as a wrap up, there's no other questions from the floor, right? It's good that I hope that I haven't taken up too much time, and I hope you do enjoy this extra time that we've taken up for this discussion. As a wrap up, one rapid question to the two remaining speakers. One actionable step that you would prioritize to strengthen the halal ecosystem? And then you can also give your last view of this particular session that you are participating in. Nadia, first.
Yep. Sorry, I didn't know if you wanted me first. Definitely say investment in technology-driven verification methods and education with the Muslim consumers, as well as harmonized standards, most definitely. And it's
Harmonizing
been a great
standards.
session. It was really good to see the different continents discussing kind of almost the same issues. So it was really good.
Yeah. Yeah, harmonization. I think coming from a pharmaceutical industry that they themselves is having issues of harmonizing their pharmaceutical requirements. If you look at pharmaceutical industry and halal industry, in terms of requirements of certification or approval, is almost the same. And if you want to export or import, if you want to export to a country a pharmaceutical product, almost similar things that is required for halal certified products is being asked for pharmaceuticals. But I don't think the same goes for food, and that's why the request for harmonization is very prominent at the but that should not stem the request or the movement to harmonize them. It's a good point, and it's something that we need to strive with wisdom. So, Dr. Awal, please unmute.
Okay, I think another area we need to improve is collaboration. Once we achieve what Sister Nadia is saying in terms of funding innovations, we need to collaborate to share ideas to be able to see areas we can improve going forward. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's a good point, and I believe let's use this International Halal Conference since it's a webinar that we can continue to exchange ideas. Like I said earlier, under the patronage and support of SMIC, I think we can get more mileage from this discussion, inshallah. So with that, I really thank you, Sister Nadia, Sister Gemma, for sharing your work, your history, and Sister Nadia, you really make me want to relook at what I want to do for my DBA. Going back to more beyond 1960s. And Dr. Awal, and I wish that I could travel so that I can share like what you experience in by observing. But I hope that what Sister Gemma said about virtual reality, I can experience that too. So thank you very much, everybody, and also thank you very much to the participants. Even though you are quiet, except for Sister Fairuz, but I believe that this particular session is beneficial to you, inshallah, and I really hope that I've carried my task well in moderating the session and hosting this particular day too. So with that, I thank you very much. Let's end this with praising Allah subhanallah and give his salawat to our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and remind ourselves with Surah Wal-Asr. Rahim. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. So with that, I close this session. Thank you very much. Please do join the following days, day 3 onwards, where unfortunately for me, but fortunately I hope for you all too, that I'm continuing to be moderator for day 3 and 4, and I'll be in day 6 presentation and panel session. So hopefully you'll join not only those sessions that I've quoted, but also all the other sessions that you can see from the program book and posters, and participate actively. All right. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum. For those who are going to have iftar, have a good iftar. Who are continuing to fast, persevere. All right. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.